Our objectives today are to understand diagonal strap braced walls. These are primarily for cold form steel frame systems. They could conceivably be used in other systems, but most of my discussion today, as well as the pictures we're going to see and the discussions we're going to have, are specifically on cold form steel load bearing systems. Now, a strap brace shear wall may not necessarily be in a load bearing wall, but it is structural in nature. It is part of the structural load resisting system, and therefore it has to be made from structural materials. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But in cold form steel framing, there is a difference between structural and non-structural, and that's a very important demarcation. The other thing is you'll know the design process, including calculation of deflection and stiffness, and then we're going to see some examples of best practices in design for both high wind and high seismic. And we want you to understand the realities of construction. What really happens with these wall elements in the field? What are some of the issues that the installers have where you may have a perfect design that's going to work fine, but if the installers can't install it, it's not going to get built the way that you intend. So this is based on the 2018 International Building Code, as well as ASCE 716, as well as these two documents that are listed from the American Iron and Steel Institute. AISI has a suite of documents that are referenced by the code in Chapter 11, and in that in the steel chapter, excuse me, and in that there's AISI S240, which is specifically for structural cold form steel framing members. Basically, that's 33 mil and thicker. There's also a section we will not talk about today, a document AISI S220, which is for non-structural members. But again, we won't get into that. And then AISI S400. S400 is specifically the standard for seismic design. Now, as I started developing today's presentation, there's a lot of detailed information about seismic that didn't make it in here today. Because there's so much stuff that goes in there, things about drift calculations. I do expect to get several questions about those, and I'm prepared to answer those. But a lot of the same information about loading of these, as well as steel sheet sheathed or wood sheathed shear walls, are very similar on how the load goes into that. And as a matter of fact, through SK Gauge, I'm giving another webinar on July 30th. So July 30th of this year, mark your calendar, because in that, all of our detailed designs are going to be seismic designs with these shear walls, because there's an equation for shear wall deflection design which is quite a dog's breakfast. There's a lot of variables in there, and we'll talk about that and do some deflection examples. So again, just so we can make sure and cover everything, not as much on seismic in today's presentation, but we will talk about it and get to more of that on July 30th. So, the AISI standards that I just mentioned, they're not something that you have to go out and buy. You do have to buy ASCE 7, but AISI, you can download them from this URL that's on your screen, www.cfsei.org. And just the other day I went to that. This is what the web page looks like. You can see the red circle in the lower right, free standards. You click on that, and it brings up this window. Now, as engineers that use the building code, it's important not what year that these things were published, but it's important what year the code references them. So you don't want to click on the top button, which is when AISI came up with and issued these standards. You want to click on the second one within the red circle to select standards by code adoption year. And once you do that, the ones that we're going to be talking about today are the ones that are issued in accordance with and referenced by the 2018 International Codes. And by the way, that includes the same reference documents that are in the 2019 CBC California Building Code. So you click there to download. There is some personal information you have to give to AISI, but I've been on their list for years and they don't spam me, so I don't expect you'll get a bunch of email for getting these standards. So, free downloads. The two that we spoke of, AISI S240 and AISI S400, are towards the bottom. I recommend you go ahead and download all of these. I reference quite frequently S201, the product data standard, which has information about the size of the members themselves. It also recommends that us as designers please don't use the term gauge to refer to the thickness of the members. It's much better to refer to it in mill thickness as minimum thickness. We'll get a little bit more into that later on in the presentation. So in addition to getting the free AISI standards, there's a series of technical notes that are available from CFSEI. Unfortunately, these notes are not free downloads unless you are a CFSEI member,